Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News. It's Thursday, January 15th, 10:49 in the AM. It's dark and we're going to have rain, but we're going to travel on to Minneapolis for yet a new group of victims who want to get themselves involved in the trash fire that is the Minneapolis protest scene. This time, all the way from the far west, the Lakota Sioux have gotten themselves into a bit of a mess out there in Minneapolis. And now let's discuss what it is that they're doing. Today, we're going to be talking about a story that some people have seen flashing across social media, but very few actually understand. That's why we did it, because nobody understood what was happening at the time. The situation in Minneapolis involving ICE, the shooting, a major federal immigration operation, and the sudden entrance of the Oglala Sioux tribe into the middle of it. And you say, why are the Sioux in Minneapolis? Why are tribal leaders invoking treaties and sovereignty? And maybe the more important question, what exactly do they think they're going to get out of this, right? To answer that, we need to take a look at the present situation, but also at history, because this isn't just about ICE. It's about a political strategy. It's about visibility and a tribal movement that has been mired in 1973 forever. So Minneapolis is currently the center of the biggest federal immigration enforcement operation in U.S. history. It's aggressive, it's high visibility, and it has triggered protesters, legal observers, and a full-blown moral panic among activists as they see themselves losing their grip on the city. In the middle of all this, ICE detained somehow several members of the Oglala Sioux tribe. These individuals are U.S. citizens. They are not immigrants and they are not subject to immigration law. One has already been released. Three others were taken to the ICE detention facility at Fort Snelling, the same Fort Snelling that once imprisoned Dakota people during the 1860s. Kind of funny in a way. Once tribal leadership got involved, the incident escalated fast. The tribe issued a sovereignty statement, treaties were invoked, and Minneapolis activists were thrilled. They're like, oh, we have the dead girl, and now we have the Indians. What could go better for us today? So they were thrilled to have a new cast member in their anti-ICE drama. And they put the Sioux right in front of the cameras, which brings us to the bigger story. Hands up if you already know the answer. What were the Sioux doing there in the first place, and what do they think they stand to gain by getting involved in this shitstorm? The first thing to understand, this is not the Lakota Sioux, I'm sorry, the Oglala Sioux difference. The Oglala Sioux versus ICE over immigration. Immigration enforcement isn't a Sioux issue. It isn't even a tribal issue. It's exclusively federal. Congress makes the rules. Homeland Security enforces them. No treaty ever gave any tribe a veto over immigration policy. That's not how it works. So why are they stepping into a protest movement that has nothing to do with tribal interests? Well, the answer is going to be political. Minneapolis is a stage. ICE is a powerful antagonist, and spectacle, that is visible confrontation with federal power, aka the man, is the oxygen the Sioux political class has been starved from for quite some time. And to understand why the Sioux behave this way, we have to go back to the American Indian movement. If you remember AIM and Wounded Knee in 1973, Leonard Peltier, all that situation, a 71-day armed occupation of a village on Pine Ridge. It was not just a protest. It was an attempt to declare an independent Oglala nation. It was an insurgency test case. It was a diplomatic stunt, and it was media gold. They still talk about that one out there in the woods, right? The Sioux learned one thing from that era, and that was visibility comes from confrontation. They didn't get any legislation, so no legislation, not lobbying, not negotiations, and not the courts. Visibility became the spectacle. Okay. The problem is it's not 1973. It's been 50 years. Other tribes evolved past the 1970s. The Navajo built institutions, the Cherokee built bureaucracy and businesses. And if you are down here where I am and travel 15 minutes south of my house, the Seminoles have built a casino empire unrivaled in the world. Alaska Native corporations have built some things with their resources and energy empires. The Sioux built narrative sovereignty. They built grievance capital, and grievance capital depreciates fast if you don't refresh it with a new spectacle. Then comes Minneapolis, right? So let's ask the question that nobody is really asking is what is it that the Oglala Sioux actually need? Okay. Their reservation is economically stagnant. Federal appropriations are their lifeline. It's a welfare state. Their political leverage is almost entirely symbolic. And the return of Trump to the White House does not really go with the symbolic grievance politics, you know, that threatens it more than anything else. Trump is not going to trade in victimhood. He makes deals, he deals with resources and jurisdictions. Tribes that can transact will gain power, tribes that can only perform despair will lose it. So, from that perspective, the Sioux have every incentive to assert relevance before the political environment shifts again and to do it publicly, loudly, and in a way that looks like sovereign resistance is federal authority. Okay. Minneapolis is offering them that. So these older, fugitives from the 70s are like, we are not doing as well as the other tribes. We believe in loserism. We have had no real spiritual resurgence, things of that nature. So they are going to get themselves involved in this thing. And here's the issue. This strategy made sense in 1973. It does not make much sense in 2026. As I said, other tribes are against the illegal immigrants. If you go down to, I guess it's the Navajo or the Apache, somebody down south, there's a woman, Jennifer Muskrat, who is on Instagram, and she is virulently against it. Her nation is against it, and they are on the border. They do not like the idea that the Mexicans have lied about owning all this land when it was Indian land. So they have their grievance thing going in a different way. The Sioux are trying to graft a sovereignty drama onto an immigrant protest, but immigration isn't Standing Rock, right? The political mood has shifted. Volunteers are not interested in stopping federal officers from enforcing the border. And if the Sioux escalate, if they try to physically obstruct ICE, they will be seen not as victims of federal neglect, but as terrorists, which is what we're going to consider all the rest of these activists as they attack ICE agents in the street. That is a losing political platform at best. The frame is just going to be garbage, right? So the Sioux have every right to demand the release of their citizens. I still don't know what they did, probably just acted up, and every right to point out federal mistakes. But turning this into a sovereignty showdown with ICE, it looks like a political culture playing from the 1970s. Is this Billy Jack? Am I watching Billy Jack? Am I reading Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee? What is going on? Incident at Oglala. These are the things that this group thinks are still relevant at this point. And that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy buried in that. The Oglala Sioux should not be stuck reenacted Wounding Knee every time they want the federal government to notice them. Sovereignty should be more than spectacle. It should be a capacity and it should evolve. And whether the Sioux are ready to evolve or whether they can even do it at this point, I don't know how many of them are out there on the reservation, is the real question that this Minneapolis moment is going to be bringing into focus. So that's where we are with that. Stay tuned for whatever next crazy group comes out of the woods and have a good day.